Hello, everyone. Ex-Walk Hill Bethelite here. And I want to answer a question. Uh, what's the difference between religion and a cult? Aren't all religions cults? Well, I want to get into that because, in my opinion, there's a difference. Based off my experience growing up in a cult, right? There's a difference between that cult and a church. Someone who possibly maybe they didn't grow up in a cult, or maybe they weren't in that cult for very long. They may see no difference between Jehovah's Witnesses, the cult, and your regular Catholic church or Baptist church or something to that effect. So the difference, let me explain it by illustration versus definition. So I'm going to focus more on an illustration. Aren't all classes a class? Is there a difference between LD classes or special ed classes and a regular class? They're both classes, but is there a difference? Yes, there is. There's a big difference. That's the exact same thing between a Jehovah's Witness and someone in a church that we would not consider a cult. They're both religious groups, but one is for people who are special, and one is for your normal individual. Jehovah's Witnesses and the special ed class, or the people who are LD, that's learning disability, if I'm thinking of that correctly. An LD person is the Jehovah's Witness. Your regular class are your churches. In a church, let's get into our illustration. In an LD class, you have somebody giving you special instruction. Come on in, Johnny. Sit down, little Johnny. Here are some blocks. Let's see you stack the blocks on top of each other. Little Johnny stacks the blocks up. Good job, Johnny. Good job. Pat on the back, pat on the head. You stacked those blocks up so nicely. Now, little Johnny, let me see you unstack the blocks. Little Johnny unstacks the blocks. Good job. Here's a cookie. You unstack the blocks. You have somebody giving you constant instruction. They have to tell you everything, typically in an LD class. And they're giving you, they're trying to make things a whole lot easier, really. And giving you praise when you do things that you're told to do. Jehovah's Witness. Read your watchtower, Brother Johnny. Answer this very simple question. Good job. Very fine comment. Very fine points. Everybody after the meeting, oh, that was such a fine comment. Oh, you did such a good job. Giving you very simple instructions and then giving you praise after you have completed those instructions. A kid who is used to having special ed, LD classes, and classes after school to help them with homework and all these other things, right? The kid who's used to being told everything to do, they probably would not fare well. The LD kid probably wouldn't fare well if, for example, they switch schools and all of a sudden they just have to go to a regular class. What's going to happen? Their grades are going to plummet. If the LD kid, this isn't to make fun of LD kids, that's learning disability. If the LD kid, but it's to tell the truth of the situation. That's the difference between the Jehovah's Witnesses and a regular church, is one is for special people and one is religion for your regular average person, right? Jehovah's Witnesses are, to a certain extent, LD. They have a disability in being able to tell or think on their own critically. They can't do it. Just like a kid with a learning disability may have a problem, let's say, focusing in school. Right? They may only be able to focus for a short period of time, and then the rest of the time they're like fidgeting, moving around, or they may be daydreaming. This is not to make fun of them, but to explain that while every group of people that meet in school may be having a class, the special ed class is different from the regular class. While there are a lot of people in religion, the special ed religion or Jehovah's Witnesses, the cult, is different from a regular church. In a special ed class, the teacher is going to need to map out everything for the student. Map out things that an average student would be able to do for themselves, such as the Jehovah's Witnesses. Everything is mapped out. You're supposed to study this on this day. You're supposed to study that on that day. Then we're going to meet again. And then after we meet again, we're going to discuss it for you. And then after that, you're going to study this. And then we're going to meet again. And then we're going to discuss it. And you're going to go out and you're going to pass out the watchtower. And then after you pass out the watchtower, end of the month, you get a piece of paper, write down how many watchtower you gave out. As a matter of fact, you have Stephen Lett, and he teaches like he's speaking to special ed. The interesting thing about this is that if you ask people that know him, they'll say, no, he don't talk like that normally. That's not how he normally talks. He only talks like that when he gets on the platform and he knows he's talking to slow people. So, brothers, we're going to have you read 1 Corinthians. This is Stephen Lett, chapter 2, verse 3. You even have governing body members that speak to your Jehovah's Witness member base like they're slow, because they are, right? I'm not making it up. Virtually every everything that a special ed kid needs that the school provides separately. Different classes. A Jehovah's Witness needs that's provided separately from the cult, right? So just like the special ed kid, if he were to switch schools and they didn't put him in special ed, and he's used to being told what to do, how to do it, sit down, do your homework, stack the blocks. If he did not have that, those grades will plummet. What happens to the Jehovah's Witness many times, not every time, but many times, when they leave the cult? They have problems. They don't have anybody tell them every little thing to do, structuring every little thing for them, and they have problems. They run into all kind of problems because they can't think for themselves, so they end up coming right back to the cult. You have people that have left, and oh man, it's so hard out here. I have to use what? This. Critical thinking. I have to map out my own way. I don't have anybody telling me every little thing what to do. And I don't have anybody telling me stack the blocks and pat me on the back when I'm done stacking the block. What then happens is they run into some kind of trouble, and then they have to go back to the cult, right? Your regular church member is going to church because they want to. If they decide, if just your average Catholic decides, I don't want to go to church anymore, Baptist, your average Methodist decides, I'm not going to go to church anymore, and they leave, they're going to leave until they decide to come back. They're not going to come back because they can't figure out how to function outside of church. That's a Jehovah's Witness, though. They come back oftentimes not just because they just up and decided, I want to go back to religious services. No, they come back because they're special and they can't figure out how to function without the special ed religious classes. Those are some of the difference. What do you guys think about that? I mean, think about it, because everything is the same between Jehovah's Witness, special ed religious service, and a school system providing special ed classes. But there's a difference between regular religious service, special ed, which is Jehovah's Witness religious, or typically a cult. Regular classes and special ed classes. There's a big difference there. With with a cult, typically, and this is definitely the case with Jehovah's Witnesses, you have a religion that's taking advantage of people with special needs. The people who mentally they can't figure out 1 and 1 is 2. They're taking advantage of the slower people. The difference, though, between special ed classes in school is those classes are set up to help a person who has got a learning disability or their brain processes slower than your average person. It's even said that Watchtower uses brainwashing. And, there's going to be people that think that stuff is fake, that stuff doesn't work. Yes, brainwashing, hypnotism, those things will work on somebody who is mentally more open to it, mentally more susceptible to it. A person like a Jehovah's Witness that's more prone to just turn off their brain. You may think this sounds crazy, but a Jehovah's Witness who is capable of sitting down at a meeting and just turning off their brain, they're more susceptible to brainwashing or more susceptible to hypnotism, right? So this is something that is a difference, a major difference between a Jehovah's Witness and a regular church member. Every religion, in my opinion, is not a cult because, hold on, let me wet the whistle here. Because a church is going to give a certain amount of religious instruction, and they expect the church member to be able to function the rest of the day, the rest of the week, and figure out the rest. A church is going to preach you a sermon. You're going to have your music. You're going to have your full service. That's what that involves. Your sermon, your music, prayer. You're going to get your service. But after you leave, you got to figure out the rest. That's the exact same with school. They're going to give you a certain amount of instruction. And they're going to go over it on the board with you. After they've done that, it's time to switch to the next subject. You got to figure out the rest. You got to be able to take the rest home, complete that homework, bring it back to school correct. You would have had to have gotten that religious instruction, that school instruction where the teacher goes over the information, they go over it over the board, but you got to do the rest. You got to do the work. You got to do the homework and then turn it in correctly. Right? The difference, though, is that there's some kids that aren't going to be able to do the rest on their own. They have LD. There's something there where they're not able to function based off of just your average teacher-student instruction. They're going to need somebody to really hands-on, show them this, show them that. Sit down, quit jumping up and down, quit banging your head up against the wall, sit down, do your work. Let me sit right next to you and do it with you type of instruction. That's the exact same with a Jehovah's Witness. We already discussed at a regular church, the pastor, preacher, priest, what have you, going to give you a certain amount of religious instruction, music, prayers, the full service. But then after that, you got to figure out the rest. You got to be able to leave the church, go home, and be okay until next Sunday. Jehovah's Witnesses cannot do that. They can't, they can't just go to a regular church, get regular instruction, figure out the rest on their own. No, they need somebody to sit next to them, tell them what to study, tell them, go over it with them after they've studied it. Give them a whole structure of what to do, when to do it. Saturday, you got to come and you got to rehearse giving out Watchtower. You've got to pass out the Watchtower. We're going to be hands-on with you. We're going to tell you what car to get into to get out there in order to pass out the Watchtower. We're going to tell you which Watchtower you're supposed to be passing out. They can't just pass out any Watchtower. You're supposed to be passing out a certain Watchtower that's dated from this time to that time. And you look around as a Jehovah's Witness, some people got the wrong Watchtower. You know it's true. There's certain Watchtowers you're supposed to pass out. You get to the meeting. Some people are going to look in their hand, look around and slowly put the Watchtower back in the bag because they got the wrong one because they're slow. They can't figure out basic stuff. And then most likely you get to the territory, they're going to be asking to use some of yours because they can't even figure out which magazine to bring. Right? This is not something I'm making up. This is the truth. Then after they're done with the, passing out the Watchtower, quote unquote, they're supposed to have somebody come check on them at their house, call the shepherding call, make sure you're doing okay. Are you okay? Are you able to function? Kind of like Stephen Lett, just how he talks to everybody. You don't think that there's a reason why a governing body member, Stephen Lett, talks in a certain manner after he's been around Jehovah's Witnesses as long as he's been around them? He done been around Jehovah's Witnesses for a long time. So, of course, he gets on stage and he may have literally figured out the reason I'm preaching to these people and not at a regular mainstream religion is because these people are slower. So I need to talk a certain way to help them understand. Turn in your Bible. See, he's been around Jehovah's Witnesses long enough to know. I mean, this is something you can look up, and it's pretty well known amongst Jehovah's Witnesses that Stephen Lett talks to them like they're retarded, because that's probably what he thinks they are. He's been around them for a long time. Do you think that nobody has talked to this man and said, you look crazy on the camera, dude? Why are you stop doing that? His freaking mother is probably, if she's alive, or she's probably told him, stop talking like they're retarded on the camera. His mom or somebody who talks to him normally has probably said, stop talking to them like they're retarded on the camera, Stephen. Stephen, you stop talking like that. Are you talking like that? And he's like, yeah, Mom, because they're slow. I've been in this organization for 50 years. These people are slow as molasses, and that's why I talk like that, Mom. Well, Stephen is not nice. Well, Mom, they're slow. What do you want me to do? I'm sure this conversation has been had between, Brother Lett and his mom. His mom probably just calls him Steph or Stephen or Steffi. But she's like, Steffi, stop talking retarded on the camera. Mom, they're slow. You may have, and you're not supposed to have it, but you may have people who, are in special ed, and the teachers talks a little bit slower, making sure they understand. Open your book, Johnny. After you open your book, read it. Once you read from here to here, stop reading. And then me and you are going to go over it. That's Stephen Lett. Friends, read from here to here, Open your books first. First of all, because you always open your Bibles, read from here to here. Then after that, stop reading. This is for your experienced Jehovah's Witness here, or somebody that's been around Jehovah's Witnesses for a long time. Haven't you been in a meeting where a Jehovah's Witness is supposed to read a scripture, read from here to here in the Bible, and they keep freaking reading? They don't know where to stop. I've seen it. I've seen the person who they're supposed to give a comment, and the person who hands them the mic darn near has to take the mic back from them. Like, stop, be quiet. Because there are people who they'll be told, read 5 verses or read 3 verses. They'll read past where they're supposed to read and they'll just keep on reading. And it's like, Brother Johnny, stop. You're only supposed to read but so much. Or the people whose comments, as easy, as simple as that watchtower is, are way off, way too long. They need somebody to take the mic from them. I've been that brother standing next to brother or sister so-and-so whose comment is way off and way too long, and you're looking at the watchtower conductor like, did we just take the mic from them, or did this person just take up the rest of the watchtower study? Like, you're talking with slower people who can't handle just regular religious service, right? I mean, I've sat and I've thought about it, and that's the difference. Jehovah's Witnesses are slower. Anybody else would be able to figure out that if a religious person or religious group falsely predicts the end of the world, probably time to leave. If a religious group falsely predicts the end of the world and then proceeds to falsely predict the general time frame of generation of 1914, and then you look into it and they just got a pattern of this, probably not what you want to, probably not where you want to be. Oh, there's Jehovah's Witnesses that know about all this stuff. There's Jehovah's Witnesses that know about the Royal Commission and child sex abuse, and they state they can't figure out if my religion falsely predicts the end of the world and falsely predicts things multiple times, maybe that's not the one God's using. They can't figure it out. I've seen plenty of people who've left, the members left the special ed services, and then they get into trouble because they can't handle life unless everything's structured for them. They need to know what to do Monday. Okay, now what do I do Tuesday? Okay, now what do I do Wednesday and then Thursday? And then also too with special ed, you're going to get praise for doing less than what the normal student would do. You're going to get praise for stacking the blocks. Jehovah's Witnesses, you got somebody that can't hardly read, and they're getting a title as a ministerial servant. You got somebody that Jehovah's Witnesses are supposed to wear suits and whatnot. They're coming in with, just like a priest would have the white collar, they got the dark brown collar. Their clothes are dirty. They don't even know to wash their clothes, and they're getting put on stage, so that they can give their little slow speech and then get back down and everybody give them a pat on the back. Jehovah's Witnesses need that pat on the back just for coming to the meetings, really. Right? For doing the easy, simple things that anybody else would be able to do. They get that pat on the back. So that's the difference. There's a difference, and one of those differences is Special ed class versus regular class. They're both a class, but there's a difference. Special ed religious services, Jehovah's Witnesses versus regular church. They're both religious services, but a cult is very different. Comment down below. Let me know what you think. X Wall Kill Bethelite signing out.